with you this evening. You should all be seeing my screen now, and it should say the economy is strong. How do I find the best job? I look forward to working with you tonight, and of course I look forward to answering any questions you might have. Please enter those in the chat feature, and when we're done with the presentation, we will work through those as quickly as we possibly can. So how do you go about finding the best job? Well, this is going to be an interesting presentation because I'm going to start in an interesting place. Some place that maybe an economics professor or a job counselor might not start right out when talking about this topic. And that is, the first thing you really need to do is you need to decide what you really want. Now, you've been going through college and working through school for many, many years with your eye on the goal of getting a great job and providing for yourself throughout your life. But have you ever really sat down and thought about what that meant and what it is you really, really wanted? The first job I got out of college was as a stockbroker, and I thought that was what I really, really wanted, but I had never really given it much thought. And I found out very quickly after working on it as a stockbroker that I actually really hated that job. And it was only after experiencing that I decided to go back to school and get a PhD so I could teach and do research. I could have saved myself a lot of time and a lot of money if I had spent some time just really thinking about what it is I really wanted. So before you begin this journey of finding the best job, first of all, decide what that job might look like. I'll give you some hints I give my students. I tell them to take their phone and all their electronics and stick it in a drawer and walk out into a quiet park somewhere and sit in the sunshine until they get really, really bored. And after they get really, really bored, sit there a little longer. And after you've sat there for a while away from the distractions of modern day life, you'll be able to hear yourself think. And if you ask yourself the question very honestly, what is it do I really want, you'll be able to hear some answers. And that will help you decide on what kind of job you should be pursuing. You might be surprised at what you discover if you actually took the time to ask yourself that question. So once you've decided what it is you really want to do, let's talk about some information that might guide your choice and maybe what you do with that choice. First of all, you've got to remember that the demand for labor is a derived demand. So the industry you choose is absolutely essential to your future success. For example, suppose that you've decided that you want to be a pizza chef. You want to cook pizzas for a living. Well, that's great, and people love pizza. But you've got to remember that the reason that people get hired as pizza chefs is because somewhere out there in the world is someone who wants a pizza. If, for example, nobody wanted to buy pizza, there would be no demand for pizza chefs. And even though you really, really wanted to be a pizza chef, and that you thought that would be the best thing for you, because nobody wants potentially what you're producing, there will be no demand for your labor. So be very careful when you choose the industry you go into. You want to choose an industry where the demand for their product is increasing, because if the demand for their product is increasing, the demand for your labor and your wage and all of the benefits that come along with work will be increasing as well. Whereas if you pick an industry that is in decline, no matter how hard you work, your job, your career will also be in decline. You don't want to be this guy right here. Now, you might not recognize these pictures here, these people here, but back in the day before there were alarm clocks, there were people who worked as knocker-uppers. And these were people that would go around town with large sticks or a hammer, and they would bang on people's windows or they'd knock on their door in order to wake them up so they could get to work on time. Now, if there's no alarm clocks, this could be a great job. There's always going to be demand for your skills. But the minute an alarm clock was invented, the demand for knocker-uppers went away, and all of these people had to find new work. Don't be that guy. Don't pick an industry that is in decline. Pick an industry that is growing, an industry where there is potential for growth and long-term improvements in your work experience. So what are the growing industries right now? Well, here in the United States, here are the top 10 growing industries. Support activities for mining, other heavy civil engineering, beverage manufacturing, personal services. This, of course, are things like dog grooming, hair styling, etc. Direct selling establishments, building contractors, real estate agents and brokers, durable goods, merchants, wholesalers, freight trucking, and agricultural engineering. These are the industries that are growing. And as a result, these are the industries that have growing demand for labor. This is where you're going to find higher wages, rising wages, and the potential for a long-term satisfactory career. So as you ask yourself, what is it do you really want to do, let that question be informed by where growth is occurring. And if you decide after having that experience with yourself that you really want to be a knocker-upper, maybe you should go back and rethink that, because there's no one out there that needs someone to come bang on their door to wake them up in the morning. Pick an industry that is growing. So you look at this list and maybe you think to yourself, well, hang on. I didn't major in civil engineering. I didn't major in engineering of any kind. I didn't major in sales. I didn't major in anything. What am I going to do? Well, stop worrying and take note. Every last one of those industries requires thousands of different skills. Remember, it was support for mining industries that was needed. It was support for manufacturing and for agriculture. And for every engineering student that goes into mining, they're going to need finance students. They're going to need English students. They're going to need human resources students. They're going to need foreign language students. They're going to need all kinds of students to be able to support their industry. So even if you didn't major in something that directly applies to that, take note. Every last one of those industries is going to require someone with your skills. To put it bluntly, suppose that you've majored in Elizabethan poetry and you've spent the last 4 years reading the works of William Shakespeare. Well, so do people in the mining industry need someone who can quote William Shakespeare? Well, maybe not, but oil companies need people that can think clearly and can communicate effectively. And if you've gone to a good 4-year program and you've written your term papers and you've done your core classes and you've done well, you should have learned to think clearly and communicate effectively. And if you can do that, if you can think clearly and communicate effectively, it doesn't really matter what you studied as an undergraduate. You will be able to find a job in a growing industry, because industries need people that can think clearly and communicate effectively. So don't close doors on yourself. As you're out there thinking about what job you would really like, think about the mining industry, think about the agriculture industry, think about trucking, think about the service industry, think about housing and construction. Even though you might not think you have a talent for those industries, remember, those industries need people like you too. So don't artificially close doors on yourself. Leave yourself open to something new and something different, where the skills you have obtained over the last several years are going to make your dreams come true. Also remember, as you go out into the job force, that this is not your last job hunt. On average, people today will go through 5 or 6 major career changes over the course of their lives. So don't look at this job hunt as your last job hunt, where you have to find the best job right now. It may be the case that this job is the job that's going to get you to where you want to be. Going back to our previous example, right now, suppose that you've majored in economics and you're thinking you'd like to go into business. You'd like to be your own businessman. You'd like to be an entrepreneur. And you look at that list and you say, where do entrepreneurs fit? Well, maybe they fit in a diesel truck driving gasoline around at a well drilling site in Canada or in Texas. Right now, there's an acute shortage, and you can easily earn $170,000 a year driving a truck for an oil services company. So maybe you go down, and maybe that's not your dream job, but maybe that is the best job for now. Because after earning $170,000, $200,000 a year driving trucks for a few years, you'll have the capital and you'll have the expertise to come back and start your own business and be your own entrepreneur. Think of this job you're searching now as your stepping stone to the next job, the better job. Maybe you won't get your best job for several years, but you can definitely put yourself on that path. So let's talk about putting yourself out there. It can be a very stressful and scary thing to go out on the job market, because people are going to look at you and they're going to weigh you. They're going to ask the question, is this person going to be right for us? Is this person good enough for us? And that can be a hard thing. So I want you to spend a little time reflecting on your own experiences in the marketplace before you go out there. You've purchased an awful lot of things over the course of your life. You're very, very comfortable with the notion of being the buyer. Now, suppose you wanted to buy a car. What would you look for in that purchase? What would it be about a car that would induce you to buy it? Would it be the price? Would it be the number of seats? Would it be a fancy paint job? Would it be reliability? It would be all of these things and many more. In the end, the reason you would buy a car is because that car fits your needs. And that car is going to give you something that you need so your life can move forward in the way that you desire. And we're all very comfortable with those analyses as buyers because we do it all the time. Well, here's the thing. When a firm offers you a job and hires you, they are buying your labor services. And they, just like you when you're buying a car, want to buy labor services that's going to help them get down the road of their choosing. So as you think about going out on the market and presenting yourself to potential employers, remember one big thing. You're the one selling the product. You are no longer the buyer, you are the seller. And the product you are selling in the market is the most important product you will ever sell because you are selling yourself, your labor skills, your ingenuity, and everything that you can be to an employer. So shift your paradigm and think instead of the buyer, think of yourself as the seller. How does a car dealership entice you to the place where they're selling cars? How do they get you to take a test drive? How do they convince you to buy their car instead of someone else's? That's the methodology of thought you need to adopt because there's going to be a lot of people out there in the job market competing with you, and you want to be the best. You want to be the worker that the employers look at and say, this is what we want. This is the convertible of our dreams. This is what's going to take us down the road we want to go down. This is the person we're going to hire. The potential employer, when thinking about that, is going to ask them very specific questions. And that big question is, what do you contribute? Remember from your economics class, in order for a firm to hire somebody, the marginal revenue product of that worker has to be greater than or equal to the marginal cost. Well, what does that mean in simple terms? That means you need to contribute more to the firm's bottom line than you cost. That is what the firm is going to be looking at when they interview you. Is this person going to add more than we have to pay them? And if you can convince them that, yes, you will add more than you cost, you're going to get the job. Now, where to look? Well, for starters, the best jobs, just like the best deals, are usually found through word of mouth. You've got to network, you've got to network, you've got to network. Talk to your friends, talk to your parents, talk to the people your parents go to church with, talk to the people your parents work with, talk to the people your parents go to a Rotary Club with, talk to everybody. Let them know you're looking for a job. Let them know what your skill sets are, because the greatest jobs are found through word of mouth. Why is that? Well, because it's costly to recruit and hire people. But if a firm can get a reliable recommendation from someone they know and trust, they will have more interest in you because the risk associated with you will be reduced and the expense of that job search will be reduced. In a hot job market, this is less of a problem, but you should still network and you should check for online places, online job sites. You should go to human resources offices. Be personally interested. Most importantly, if your school has a career services center, go and make best friends with the people in that career services center. It is their job to get you a job. When you go out on an interview, it's all about something we call signaling. You need to signal to that employer that you're the high marginal revenue product individual. You are the best hire. How do you signal? Where you prepare through your education, you prepare for your interview, learn about the company, find out about it. So when they ask you the question, why do you want to work for us, you're able to give them specific answers. Be careful about how you're dressed. Go to the company before your interview and see how the successful people there are dressing. Dress like them, just one step more formal. Be careful how you act. One of the most important considerations in hiring is something called emotional intelligence, or EQ. This is how you signal to other people whether or not you are connected to their needs. Put your cell phone in your car. Turn it off, leave it alone. Picking up your cell phone during a job interview is the death knell for that job. And be careful of how you speak. Use good grammar, good language. Communicate to these people that you are productive and you are successful. Once you've done this, rinse and repeat. First of all, when you get your job, be the worker you sold to your employer. The worst thing in the world is buyer's remorse, and you don't want your employer to have buyer's remorse over hiring you. How do you do that? Well, it's simple. Show up 5 minutes early, leave 5 minutes late. You'll distinguish yourself in myriad ways if you'll take the time to do that. Volunteer for additional responsibilities. Show your employer that you're giving more value than was expected. Get along with your coworkers. Collegiality is of utmost importance in the workplace. And continue your education, whether that's formally or whether that's informally learning the business you're in. And finally, start preparing for your next job search. The greatest raises that can be had are not had by staying in the same position and getting an annual raise. The largest wage increases happen when you change jobs within a firm or when you move from one firm to another. So if you really want to move up the pay scale, you're going to have to go on additional job searches. So start preparing now, start networking now, start polishing your resume, start getting ready for the next job search. I guarantee if you follow these simple advice and just do a few little things on your own, you're going to have great success in the market. And here's me wishing you good luck. Thank you.
Then is there Q&A?